It started with something so bizarre, so out of place, I honestly thought I was dreaming. I stepped out one morning, coffee in hand. Boots barely laced, and there it was, glinting in the morning sun like some deranged wedding venue right in the middle of my pasture. A full-sized white gazebo, with billowing curtains, a chandelier, pastel cushions, and even solar-powered fairy lights. It looked like a bridal catalog had exploded overnight. And sitting dead center on one of my fields me land was a woman I barely knew by name, but had heard plenty about, Evelyn Thatcher. Or as everyone in the nearby subdivision called her, Madam Evelyn. HOA president, self-declared lifestyle guru, and queen of unsolicited advice. She sat there like she owned the place, cross-legged on a cushion, sipping cucumber water with this serene smile, as if nothing about this was absolutely insane. I approached slowly, thinking maybe it was a mistake, maybe a wedding planner set up in the wrong place. But as soon as I opened my mouth to ask, she looked up and said, "Oh, don't be so territorial, Joseph. It's just a few feet onto your land. Besides, my spiritual circle needs openness. And your pasture has such healing energy." I blinked. I pointed at the survey marker about 10 feet from the gazebo's front leg and said, "That's the property line. That's yours. This is mine." She gave me the kind of tight-lipped smile you give a toddler who just told you the moon is made of cheese. "Don't be dramatic. This spot has always felt like part of our community. And didn't your grandfather sell a portion of this land years ago? Maybe this is that part. You can't really know for sure." I stood there stunned. This wasn't a mistake. This was a power move. A territorial grab wrapped in crystals and lavender oil. Now, I'll admit I was mad. But I've lived long enough to know that rage gets you in trouble. Paperwork, on the other hand, gets you results. So I walked back to my house, cracked open the file cabinet where I kept every deed, every dispute, every survey, and pulled out the maps. That gazebo? It was nearly 12 feet into my land. I even had drone footage from a few months ago when the field was empty. And then I wrote one word in my notebook: pigs. See, that field used to be where my uncle raised hogs. The soil was still perfect for it, and I'd been meaning to get back into livestock anyway. Now I had the best reason possible. The next day, I walked the boundary line with measuring tape and bright pink flags. Evelyn stood on the gazebo's steps, arms folded, watching me. "Planning renovations?" she asked, voice sweet as honey. "Something like that," I replied, thinking of bringing something special to the neighborhood. That night, I ordered lumber, fencing supplies, a new trough system, and called up my cousin Levi, who used to do odd jobs and small builds. Told him I needed a structure built with a sense of poetic justice. He laughed for a good 5 minutes, then said, "I'm in." Over the next week, Evelyn escalated. She started holding women's wellness sessions in the gazebo, think scented candles, folding chairs, new age music. Once, I saw a woman doing Tai Chi while holding a crystal shaped like a dolphin. I just kept my head down and dug post holes around the gazebo, layering them with hay so they wouldn't be noticed. Meanwhile, I filed for a livestock shelter permit, perfectly legal, by the book. The clerk at the county office raised an eyebrow when he saw the address, then chuckled and said, "Ah, bringing back the hogs, huh?" I smiled and said, "Yep. Time to restore balance." When Evelyn received the first whiff of what was coming, she lost her spiritual cool. She marched up to me one morning, gesturing wildly at the fence posts and flattened ground. "What is this?" she demanded. I looked up, calm as ever, and said, "Getting ready for pigs. 5 of them. Big ones. Loud ones. They love to roll in mud. Should be good for the energy flow, don't you think?" Her jaw dropped. "You're joking." "I'm not. And you might want to start thinking about boots. It's going to get messy." She stormed off, red-faced, and mumbling about bylaws. That evening, I received a cease and desist letter from the HOA signed by Evelyn herself, accusing me of creating environmental distress and violating community standards with aesthetic disruptions. I sent back a tidy response with copies of my land deed, the shelter permit, and a personal note that read, "Thanks for the gazebo donation. My pigs are going to love it." And they did. The pigs arrived on a crisp Saturday morning. 5 snorting bundles of energy. The largest, a bold female with spots and a sass to match, immediately ran into the gazebo and started rubbing herself on the curtain. I named her Greta. Within hours, the chandelier was tilted, the cushions were torn, and the lavender sachets had been buried in the mud. Evelyn was horrified. She came out screaming like she was watching her dream house being set on fire. You need to get rid of them. This is a place of peace. No, I said. It's a pig shelter now. Legally permitted. Environmentally enriching. She threatened to call the sheriff. I encouraged her to do so. He came, looked around, asked me one question. You got permits? I pointed at the stake with the laminated permit flapping in the wind. He nodded and left. The next day, Evelyn upped her attack. She installed giant outdoor speakers at the edge of her yard and blasted classical music Vivaldi, Wagner, Tchaikovsky for 6 straight hours. But something unexpected happened. Greta started dancing. She bobbed her head, twitched her tail, and soon, the other pigs joined in. We had a full-blown pig ballet happening in the gazebo. A neighbor caught it on camera, uploaded it with the title Dancing Pig at HOA Gazebo. It went viral, over 80,000 views in 2 days. I started getting emails from people wanting to visit, donate, even hire Greta for birthday parties. Evelyn was livid. She tried to spin it as harassment, claimed I was weaponizing livestock for psychological warfare. She called an emergency HOA meeting on my property line, flanked by clipboard warriors and a woman with a whistle. They handed me a notice about noise, nuisance, unauthorized commercial activity. I smiled and said, "You do know this land isn't part of the subdivision, right? This property predates your HOA by 50 years. They called the sheriff again. Same guy. He looked around, sighed, and told them to leave or face trespassing charges. That was the turning point. The neighborhood began turning on Evelyn. Apparently, they were tired of her dragging the HOA into personal vendettas. Some folks started visiting the pig shelter on weekends, families, school groups. Even the mayor came by and donated a check during a local ceremony where we unveiled a new sign above the gazebo, Greta's Palace established by unauthorized construction. Now serving justice with a side of oink. And then Evelyn showed up. Hair wild, eyes burning. She stormed the podium during our little ribbon-cutting event. You humiliated me. You ruined my vision. This was supposed to be sacred. I walked toward her slowly, kept my voice calm and low. You built a structure on land that wasn't yours. You ignored boundaries, ignored warnings, and when someone responded peacefully and legally, you called it war. But I didn't destroy your vision, Evelyn. You did. I just gave it purpose. She opened her mouth to speak, but said nothing. Because deep down, she knew she had no ground to stand on, literally or figuratively. She turned and walked away, past the mayor, past the parents taking photos of Greta, past her own fading reputation. The weeks that followed were strangely quiet. Donations kept rolling in. A local nonprofit nominated the shelter for a Community Impact Award. And Evelyn, she moved out. Rumor has it she tried to become a wellness coach in another town, but someone dug up the pig video. She became an online footnote, a cautionary tale about arrogance and landlines. I didn't set out for revenge. I just wanted peace and respect, and maybe a little shade for the pigs. What I got instead was something that outlived the conflict. Something joyful. Something absurdly real. Now, every time I walk past that gazebo, I smile. Not because I won, but because I didn't have to raise my voice or throw a punch to defend what was mine. I just let Greta do the talking. And she never misses a beat. If you've ever dealt with an entitled neighbor, tell me about it in the comments. Was justice served? Or did it get buried in the mud? Let's talk about land, respect, and the fine line between property and pride. And hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes pigs really do fly.